He hadn't seen her in 5 years, but one rainy afternoon at a bus stop, he saw her again, holding the hand of a little boy, with his exact face. Have you ever let go of someone, not because you stopped loving them, but because you didn't know how to love them right? Ever thought your ambition would wait for love, only to realize too late that love didn't wait at all? Joaquin had everything money could buy: a penthouse, a driver, a private firm built from the ground up. But what he didn't realize was that in choosing boardrooms over bedrooms, he lost something priceless: the woman who would have loved him for free, and the child he never knew existed. What happens when you see your own reflection in a stranger's face? When the past shows up with dimples and red sneakers, calling someone else daddy? This is not just a story about divorce. It's about what happens when life gives you one chance to make it right. Will you take it, or miss it all over again? The sky over Newark, New Jersey hung thick with a heaviness that mirrored his chest. Clouds, pregnant with memory and moisture, sagged over the city. The rain didn't ask permission. It simply came, soft at first, brushing across windshields and concrete like a whispered warning. Inside a sleek black Range Rover, Joaquin sat motionless. His hands were clasped on his lap, knuckles pale against the dark fabric of his tailored suit. His phone vibrated on the leather seat beside him, but he didn't glance at it. "Sir," his assistant murmured from the front, tablet in hand, "we're still on schedule for Barclays. Security has been notified and your panel is set for 2:15. He didn't respond. Not right away. Joaquin used to live for days like this, tightly scheduled, ego-fueled, another chance to prove he was the sharpest name in the room. But that fire, the drive that had once devoured everything in its path, relationships, rest, love, had turned into smoke, and he was starting to realize he might be standing in the ashes. The streets outside blurred behind the tinted glass, a slick blend of colorless buildings and neon reflections. He adjusted his collar absent-mindedly. Something felt off, like a clock was ticking louder than usual. He shifted to look out the window, and that's when he saw them. A woman stood at the bus stop, umbrella tilted, coat cinched tight at the waist, her feet slightly turned in, like she was bracing herself against something invisible. A child stood beside her, maybe 5 or 6. He was bouncing a little on the soles of his shoes, humming some tune only he could hear, clutching the woman's hand like it was his anchor in the world. Joaquin leaned closer to the glass, eyes narrowing. That face, that chin, that smile. He felt the air leave his lungs in one violent rush. "Stop the car," he said, low and firm. His assistant turned, surprised. "Sir?" "I said, stop the car." The driver responded instantly, pulling to the curb just past the bus stop. Joaquin had already reached for the handle. "Sir, your umbrella." But he was already out in the rain. The cold hit him like a slap. Sharp, real, almost welcome. His shoes splashed in shallow puddles as he crossed back toward the corner. Cars honked. The wind kicked at his coat. But the world might as well have vanished around him. She turned slowly as he approached, like she felt him before she saw him. And when their eyes met, hers and Joaquin's, time didn't stop. It collapsed. "Shanice," he breathed. Her lips parted just slightly. Her expression didn't shift. Not at first. Then her eyes flicked to the boy beside her, who was now staring at Joaquin with the kind of curiosity only a child can hold without fear. Joaquin took a step forward. "Is that—" He couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't have the breath to. Shanice looked at him, not with anger, not with softness, but with a steel-lined calm that told him whatever storm she had weathered, she had done it alone. "That's our son," she said. And just like that, everything inside Joaquin shattered. The diner hadn't changed. It still smelled like burnt toast and overworked coffee grinds. The booths were worn. The ceiling fans wobbled like they had better places to be. Joaquin slid into a seat across from her, drenched and unsure. Dwight, that's what she had called him, was sitting beside Shanice, swinging his legs as he colored inside the lines of a superhero menu. His crayon gripped tight like the fate of the world depended on getting that cape just right. Joaquin couldn't stop staring. Every so often, Dwight would lift his eyes and look back, He had Joaquin's gaze, the same quiet intensity, the same skeptical curiosity. Joaquin had seen that look in mirrors his whole life. He just never expected to see it in someone else, someone so small and fragile and impossibly connected to him. "How old is he?" Joaquin asked, though the answer clanged in his head already. "5, Shanice replied, calmly wiping a bit of ketchup from Dwight's cheek. He did the math. 5 years. That was 2 months after they split. His stomach turned. "You never told me. You never asked," she replied, without venom. "Just the truth. I didn't know we were over. I thought we were just struggling." "You were acquiring a new firm, Joaquin," she said evenly. "You were traveling, signing deals, hosting conferences. You didn't have time to notice that your wife was unraveling right in front of you." He dropped his eyes. I thought it was a phase." "Marriage isn't a phase," she said. "Being present is a choice. You didn't make it." He opened his mouth, but no defense came. There was none. Not when the evidence sat 3 feet away, coloring a blue mask on a cardboard superhero. "He looks just like you," Joaquin murmured. "I know," Shanice said, softer this time. "Every time he smiles, it stings." An hour later, they arrived at her apartment. It was modest, clean, warm, and filled with the subtle echoes of a life built from broken pieces. Dwight had fallen asleep in the back seat of her car. Joaquin carried him inside without being asked. It was strange how natural it felt, the tiny body leaning against his shoulder, small breaths on his neck. He felt his chest tighten in a way he didn't have language for. In the hallway, Tyrese waited, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Joaquin froze the second he saw him. "Oh," Tyrese said flatly. "So you do know how to show up. Was beginning to think you died." "Tyrese," Shanice said quietly. "Don't." Tyrese stepped forward anyway. "I should throw hot tea at you," he said. "I deserve it," Joaquin replied. "No," Tyrese hissed, voice low. "You don't get to play humble. You left. You filed. You walked out like she was yesterday's press release. Now you come back, wet and wide-eyed, expecting what? A welcome basket? I didn't know." "You didn't care to ask." "Tyrese," Shanice repeated, firmer now. "I'm just saying what everyone else thinks but won't say. I said enough." He looked at her for a long beat, then shook his head, grabbed his jacket, and left without another word. Silence stretched like a third presence in the room. "I'm sorry," Joaquin whispered. Shanice sat on the edge of the couch. Her hands trembled for just a second, then steadied. "I told myself I'd never hate you," she said. Joaquin sat across from her. "Why?" "Because I knew one day my son would ask me about his father, and I didn't want the first thing out of my mouth to be poisoned." He swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at him then, really looked, like she was trying to find pieces of the man she once knew buried beneath the polished surface. "I didn't want Dwight growing up thinking he was a mistake. I would have tried." "Tried what?" she said, cutting him off. "Flown in for birthdays, sent checks, offered to visit every other month like a ghost in his life. I didn't know." "You didn't care to," she snapped. Then, softer, "You cared about being right, about winning, about control. And I couldn't raise a child around someone who thought love was transactional." He didn't argue. He couldn't. "He doesn't even know your name, Joaquin," she whispered. His face crumpled. "He calls you the man from the window," she added, "because sometimes I sit there at night and I wonder what we could have been." That silence returned, thick, devastating. He leaned forward slowly. "I want to know him." "You want a redo," she corrected. "I want a beginning," he said. She nodded, then stood. "We'll see." The following morning unfolded like a lesson Joaquin hadn't studied for. He stood at the kitchen counter, staring at a chipped ceramic mug Shanice had handed him, steam curling from the coffee inside. Her home smelled like cinnamon oatmeal, lemon dish soap, and something else, peace. It wasn't expensive peace. It was hard-earned. Shanice was moving quietly around the apartment, making breakfast while Dwight still slept. She didn't look at him. She didn't ask if he wanted sugar. She didn't ask anything. He sipped, but the coffee sat bitter on his tongue. Not because it was bad, but because he didn't know what to do with kindness he hadn't earned. "I used to wake up every morning wondering if you'd call," she said suddenly, her back still turned as she stirred the pot. "Then I stopped hoping. Now you show up at a bus stop with your expensive shoes and a shocked expression." "I wasn't shocked that you had a child," he said. "I was shocked that I missed everything." She looked over her shoulder then, eyes tired. "That's the part that breaks people, Joaquin. Not just that someone left, but that they didn't even realize what they were leaving." He placed the mug down gently. "I don't want to stay the man who walked away." She didn't respond right away. Then, "That's not a decision you make in one morning." Dwight woke up with bedhead and a sleepy smile, trailing his blanket down the hallway like a cape. When he saw Joaquin still there, he blinked. "Are you going to leave now?" the boy asked simply. Joaquin knelt beside him. "Only if you want me to." Dwight narrowed his eyes, curious. "Do you like robots?" Joaquin smiled. "I like robots, especially ones that can fly." Dwight considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. You can stay until I eat my cereal." Joaquin gave a soft laugh. "Deal." It wasn't much, but it was the start of something. Over the next week, Joaquin rearranged his schedule. He cancelled 2 flights, skipped a gala, pushed 3 meetings back. Instead, he showed up at a small playground near Shanice's place. Not with gifts, not with photographers or grand gestures, just with time. Dwight greeted him with cautious eyes and tentative excitement. Joaquin learned quickly that the boy liked to narrate his every move. "Watch this. I'm going to jump super far. Now I'm a jet robot. Now I'm invisible. You can't see me." Joaquin played along, diving behind trees and pretending to get jet blasted with such sincerity that even the nearby moms chuckled at the sight of the sharply dressed man rolling around in dirt for a giggling 5-year-old. Each day peeled away a little more of the distance between them. It was like watching frost melt, slow, stubborn, but inevitable. Back in his office one afternoon, his assistant entered with hesitation. "Sir, you've missed 4 strategy calls this week." Joaquin didn't look up from the robot-themed storybook he was reading. "I'll call them back. Your board is asking if you're stepping away." He finally looked up. "No, I'm stepping in, where I should have been years ago." The assistant blinked. "Should I reschedule Tokyo?" "Cancel it. My son doesn't live in Tokyo." At Shanice's front door one Friday evening, Joaquin stood with a small box tucked under his arm. "What's that?" Shanice asked warily. "A drawing tablet. For Dwight. He loves sketching. Figured it might help." She stared at the box. "It's not flashy," he added quickly. "I didn't buy him a pony." She sighed. "Come in." He stepped inside, careful not to track in rain. Dwight ran from the bedroom. "You came back again," he said with a grin. "Of course. I told you, I like robots." Dwight took the box and ripped it open like it held the moon. "It glows." Joaquin smiled. "Now you can make flying robot cartoons." Dwight hugged the tablet and turned to his mom. "Can he stay until I go to sleep?" Shanice hesitated. Joaquin looked at her, waiting. No pressure, no pleading. Finally, she gave a small nod. "He can stay." That night, as Dwight lay curled under his rocket ship blanket, Joaquin sat beside the bed, tucking the boy in. "Did you have fun today?" he asked. Dwight nodded. "You're funny. And you run weird." Joaquin laughed. "I've been told that before." The boy's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mama cried after you left last time." Joaquin swallowed. "She doesn't think I hear her, but I do. When I sleep, I hear everything." He leaned down, brushing the boy's curls with a gentle hand. "I'm going to keep coming back," he said, "even when you're not looking." Dwight stared at him a moment, then whispered, "Okay." It wasn't permission. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was enough. The next day, Shanice stood with arms crossed in the doorway. "You're not trying to win him with stuff, are you?" "No," Joaquin said. "I'm trying to win him with presence." Her eyes narrowed. "And you?" He met her gaze evenly. "I'm not here to win you. I'm here to rebuild what I destroyed." She looked away, out the window, watching the sky turn orange behind the skyline. "You're not the same person," she murmured. "And neither am I. Maybe that's a good thing." She didn't answer, but she didn't close the door either. Later that week, Joaquin met Tyrese again, this time by accident at a local bookstore. "You're still around?" Tyrese said, skeptical. "I am. Not tired of pretending." "I'm not pretending. I just got tired of running." Tyrese studied him for a beat. Then, slowly, he nodded once. "You're still on probation in my eyes." "I figured." "But he loves drawing," Tyrese added, eyes softening. That tablet made him light up. "Just don't screw it up." "I won't," Joaquin said. "For their sake, I hope that's true." At Shanice's door one rainy Thursday, Joaquin stood again, this time holding a pair of car keys. "What's this?" she asked. "You've been walking Dwight to school in the rain," he said. "This isn't a bribe. It's an umbrella with wheels." She looked at the car in the driveway. Modest, safe, used. "You didn't need to do this. I wanted to, and you expect." "What in return?" "Nothing." He didn't ask to come in, didn't ask for dinner. He just left the keys on the hook and walked back into the rain. Shanice watched him from the window as he disappeared into the storm, something breaking in her chest. He wasn't trying to buy his way back. He was trying to earn it. He didn't beg. He didn't buy. He simply showed up and walked away. Sometimes the loudest apology is a quiet act of consistency. Do you believe a person who left can ever be trusted again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this chapter touched something in you, hit that like button, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more real, raw stories just like this. The wind shifted. It was subtle, just enough to stir the curtains in Shanice's living room, to cool the tea she had poured and never touched. She stood by the window in silence, her fingers resting on the edge of the frame as she watched Joaquin walk away again. But this time, he didn't slam the door. He didn't take anything with him except a look over his shoulder and the rain on his coat. It had been 5 years since she had watched him leave the first time. This one felt different. Inside the small apartment, the hum of a cartoon played low in the background. Dwight was sitting cross-legged on the rug, the drawing tablet glowing in his lap as he sketched stick-figure robots with lasers and capes. Shanice turned to watch him for a moment, his tongue pressed between his teeth in deep focus, eyes wide with imagination. That child had carried her through years of loneliness. When postpartum hit hard, when bills piled up, when she ate cereal for dinner and hid from neighbors so they wouldn't see her struggling. Every inch of that boy was a miracle. And now the man who had left her with nothing but memories was reappearing like a ghost trying to plant roots. She wasn't sure if she had the energy to believe again. Joaquin drove aimlessly that night. The city blurred past in a series of stoplights and soaked sidewalks. The radio stayed off. His phone buzzed twice, both ignored. One was a missed call from the legal team, the other a calendar alert for a quarterly review. None of it mattered right now. His mind was still with Dwight. That boy, the way he tilted his head, the way he asked if he liked robots, the cautious hope in his eyes when Joaquin showed up again, it haunted him. And Shanice, her calm wasn't cold. It was controlled, forged in years of figuring it out alone. He parked in front of his high-rise, the building security nodding as he entered. The elevator ride to the 37th floor was silent, the doors opening with a soft ding into a space that felt more like a showroom than a home. Hardwood floors, abstract art, a wine fridge, stainless steel everything. Empty. He stood at the window, hands in his pockets, watching the skyline he once worshipped. Funny how small it looked now. The next morning, he showed up outside Dwight's school. No fanfare, no camera, just him in a hoodie and jeans, leaning against a tree like every other parent waiting. Shanice spotted him instantly. She didn't say anything at first, just watched. He waited until she walked past, then gently matched her pace. "You didn't ask to pick him up," she said. "I didn't want to push. He's not a lunch meeting you're trying to reschedule, Joaquin." "I know," he replied quietly. "I just wanted to be part of his normal, She sighed, slowing. He likes routine. I'm learning. They walked a few blocks in silence. Joaquin didn't try to fill it. When they reached the small courtyard in front of her apartment, Dwight bounded ahead, already unlocking the gate. Joaquin opened the screen door for her. I brought him something, he said, handing her a folded paper. It was a short story, a handwritten one, about a robot named Redbot who had forgotten where he came from, but remembered who he loved. At the end of the page was a crude sketch of Dwight holding hands with a taller robot with Joaquin's messy signature beneath. Shanice stared at the paper for a long moment. You wrote this? I wanted him to know I'm trying. She tucked the paper under her arm and opened the door. You want to stay for dinner? His chest tightened. Yes. Dinner was spaghetti and garlic toast, half burnt on one side. Dwight talked the whole time. About school, a girl named Zara who could jump rope faster than everyone, and how he wanted to build a real robot that cleaned his room. Joaquin laughed more than he had in years. At one point, Dwight stood on his chair to grab another slice of toast, and Joaquin instinctively reached out to steady him. His hand rested gently on the boy's back. Shanice noticed, and for a brief moment, the memory of how he used to steady her during morning sickness crept into her mind. She blinked it away. After dinner, Joaquin offered to do dishes. He stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, letting the water run over his hands like a confession. Shanice leaned on the doorway, arms crossed. You look different, she said finally. He glanced over. I feel different. Money didn't do that. No, he said, rinsing the final plate. Losing you did. Later that night, Dwight was asleep, and Joaquin lingered near the front door, keys in hand. Shanice didn't say goodbye. Instead, she asked, Do you remember what I said the night you left? He thought for a moment, then nodded. You said, I don't need you to be rich. I need you to be reachable. She nodded. You never were. I'm trying to be now. That's the thing about trying, Joaquin. It doesn't undo the not trying. He nodded again. Good night, Shanice. She didn't say it back, but she didn't close the door immediately either. The following Saturday, Tyrese dropped by. He found Joaquin sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, helping Dwight tape glow sticks to cardboard to create a robot suit. Tyrese raised a brow. Well, I'll be. Joaquin grinned sheepishly. We're prototyping. Tyrese sat down on the couch. You keep showing up. That's unexpected. I plan to keep doing it. Until I stop being a stranger. Tyrese looked at Shanice in the kitchen, then back at him. She's watching. She sees everything. I hope so. Tyrese leaned back, arms folded. You better not break my boy again. Joaquin glanced at Dwight, who was adjusting his robot laser wristband. I won't, he said. That night, Shanice stepped outside with Joaquin after Dwight was tucked in. The air was cooler. Stars hid behind clouds. I think he's starting to believe you, she said quietly. I want him to know I'll never leave again. She looked at him. And what about me? He met her gaze. You're not a footnote in my story. You were the chapter I never should have closed. Shanice didn't flinch, but she didn't fall either. I'm still healing, she said. I'm not asking you to forget, just to let me show you I remember. She nodded once, and for the first time in years she smiled. Not politely, not guarded, but the kind of smile he remembered from Sundays in bed and pancakes at midnight. Sunday afternoon sunlight streamed through the curtains in lazy streaks, warming the hardwood floor of Shanice's apartment. Dwight lay on his belly near the coffee table, drawing spaceships and robots with a level of focus that made Joaquin smile from where he sat. He had returned that morning, holding nothing but a grocery bag with fresh strawberries and crayons. No gifts, no fanfare, just presents. Shanice moved around the kitchen quietly, peeking at them through the pass-through window, hearing Dwight's bursts of giggles and Joaquin's patient questions. What's this one called? That's Mega Redbot. He flies and shoots out kindness beams. Kindness beams? Yeah. They melt bad guy hearts. Joaquin chuckled. We all need a few of those. Later that evening, after dinner and Dwight's bath, Joaquin dried the boy's hair with a soft towel. He noticed the tiny scar on his forehead and asked what happened. "I fell down, chasing the cat." "You have a cat?" "Had. He ran away." Joaquin paused. "Did that make you sad?" "Yeah. But Mom said some things don't stay forever. They just visit to teach us stuff." He nodded slowly. "She's smart. She cries when no one's looking, though." Joaquin's hand stilled. "She thinks I don't hear her." "But I do." He leaned down and kissed Dwight's forehead. "You're a strong kid." Dwight yawned. "Mama says strong doesn't mean not feeling." Joaquin's throat closed. "She's right." Shanice leaned against the doorframe, watching Joaquin read to Dwight in bed. His voice was soft, measured, like he was learning how to be gentle again. Dwight clutched the drawing tablet against his chest, his eyelids fluttering as the story came to a close. Shanice didn't interrupt. She just watched. When Joaquin turned to leave the room, he found her there. "You don't have to do bedtime every night," she said. "I want to," he replied. She nodded. "That book. You used to read it to me too," she said, almost surprised by her own voice. "I remember." There was a moment, not quite romantic, not quite tense, just memory shared in silence. "You're different now," she said finally. "I had to lose everything to see what I already had." She didn't answer, but she didn't step away either. Monday morning arrived like the world hadn't changed. Joaquin found himself standing outside Shanice's apartment again, this time holding Dwight's forgotten lunchbox. When she opened the door, she blinked. "You're early. Thought he might need this," he said, holding up the cartoon-decorated lunchbox. She gave a tiny smile. "You remembered?" "I'm trying." Dwight ran to the door, grabbing the box. "Thanks." Joaquin knelt. "I put a robot napkin in there too. You'll see." The boy's eyes lit up. "You're awesome." It was the kind of praise that no boardroom could offer, the kind that stripped a man of titles and simply left him as Dad. That evening, Joaquin sat on the stoop while Shanice did her weekly budget inside. Tyrese pulled up in his dusty blue sedan, raising an eyebrow. "You stalking them now?" "No," Joaquin said. "Just sitting." Tyrese leaned on the hood. "She's breathing easier." Joaquin looked up. "You think so?" "Yeah. But she still flinches." Joaquin dropped his head. "I was so consumed with success, Tyrese. I didn't realize I was failing where it mattered most." Tyrese crossed his arms. "Words are wind, man." "I know. Then make her feel it. Every day. Like rent. Due and paid." Joaquin nodded. "I plan to." By Thursday, Shanice found herself waiting for Joaquin to arrive. She didn't say it aloud, but her eyes drifted to the clock more than once. He came, as expected, but something was different. He didn't talk about work. He didn't dress like a presentation. He sat on the floor with Dwight and helped build a cardboard robot laboratory using cereal boxes and duct tape. Shanice stood watching them, arms folded. She felt something strange creeping in. Not romance, not yet, but safety. And that was more terrifying than love. That weekend, she invited him to join them at the park. He brought sandwiches. She brought juice boxes. They sat under an elm tree while Dwight tried to fly off the swing. "You don't talk about your mother much," she said. Joaquin adjusted his sunglasses. "Tamara? She's complicated. She know about Dwight. I told her. And?" She questioned it. Shanice's jaw tightened. "Of course, she did. But then she sent a quilt, with his name stitched on it." Shanice blinked. She stitched. First time I've ever seen her thread a needle. They both laughed, not out of humor, but surprise. "Do you want him to meet her?" Shanice asked. "I want him to decide that when he's ready." She looked at him, truly looked. That was not the man she married. That was a man reborn. That night, Joaquin lingered again, as always. But when he stood to leave, Shanice followed him outside. The air was cooler, softer. The moon hung low. You don't have to come tomorrow, she said. He froze. Okay, but if you do, maybe bring more of those strawberry yogurt things. Dwight's addicted. He smiled. I'll bring extra. She hesitated, then touched his arm lightly. And maybe you could stay for breakfast. His heart thudded. I'd like that. They stood in the hush between what was and what might be. And for once, silence didn't hurt. It healed. The apartment was quiet, not the kind of silence that comes from absence, but the rare peace that settles when all the noise outside can't find a crack to seep in. Joaquin sat on the edge of Shanice's couch, his eyes fixed on a framed photo on the shelf. It was of Shanice and Dwight. Dwight was barely a year old, cheeks puffed, fists curled around her necklace as he sat on her lap. Shanice was smiling, but it was tired. Her eyes told a story he hadn't known existed until recently, the story of long nights and quiet heartbreaks. I took that at a church fundraiser, Shanice said from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I never saw this version of you, Joaquin murmured. The one who didn't give up. She leaned in the doorway. That's because you weren't looking. The truth cut sharper than bitterness ever could. They decided to walk to the corner store that afternoon, just her, Joaquin, and Dwight. A simple errand, but monumental in ways none of them acknowledged out loud. Dwight raced ahead on his scooter, yelling, "Watch my turbo mode." Joaquin laughed. He's got your energy. Shanice shook her head. Nope. He's got your tunnel vision. He raised an eyebrow. That a compliment? Not even close. He chuckled softly, but there was something else behind it, a weight. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. What? Leaving? His jaw tensed. Every day. She looked at him sideways. Not just the child. Me. He stopped walking. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, Shanice. I left because I didn't know how to love you and be the man I thought I had to become. She held his gaze. You could have just asked for help. I was raised to believe needing help was weakness. She nodded slowly. And I was raised to believe staying silent was strength. They stood there for a moment, their unspoken histories suspended between them like a bridge finally being built. Back at the apartment, Joaquin helped Dwight with a new puzzle while Shanice sorted laundry. You ever going to talk to him about what happened? She asked from the hallway. Dwight. She nodded. I don't know how. You start with the truth, she said. Not the polished version. He looked at the boy on the floor, piecing together a spaceship one jagged shape at a time. He deserves better than what I gave. Then show him. That night, Joaquin stayed late again. This time, by invitation. Shanice brewed tea while Dwight snored softly in the next room, holding his sketchpad like a teddy bear. I remember the day you walked out, she said suddenly. You left your watch on the dresser, the one I gave you after your first investment closed. Joaquin blinked. I thought I lost that. I kept it, not out of sentiment, just, I don't know, proof. Of what? That even the things that are supposed to last forever can be forgotten in a rush. His voice dropped. I was scared. So was I. But I stayed. She looked down at her mug. I used to dream about you knocking on the door, with nothing in your hands. Just readiness. He didn't say anything, but he reached into his pocket, pulled something out, and placed it gently on the table. The watch. I found it again, he whispered. I want to wear it now, for the right reasons. She didn't cry, but her silence said everything. The next morning, Joaquin offered to drop Dwight at school. He dressed him, packed his lunch, walked him hand in hand. At the gate, Dwight looked up. Are you my dad now? He asked. Joaquin crouched. I've always been your dad. I just didn't show up like one. Dwight thought hard. Okay, but don't miss field day. It's serious. Joaquin grinned. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Meanwhile, Shanice sat at the kitchen table, rereading old journal entries she hadn't touched in years. April 4th, 2020, he didn't notice I was crying again. Or maybe he did, and didn't know what to say. Either way, I'm invisible again. May 22nd, 2020. I dreamt last night, he said, sorry, not in words. In action. Then I woke up. She closed the notebook and exhaled deeply. Outside, Joaquin's car pulled back into the driveway. That evening, they sat across from each other, eating takeout on the balcony. The city buzzed below, but up here, it felt like the world had paused for them. What scares you most? She asked. Joaquin didn't hesitate. That I won't be enough for the both of you. Shanice tilted her head. You don't have to be everything. You just have to be here. He nodded. And you? She stared out over the rail. That I'll let my heart soften, only to have it break the same way again. Joaquin leaned forward. Let me prove this time is different. Slowly, with truth. She gave the tiniest nod. As they cleaned up, Dwight stumbled out of his room, hair messy, face sleepy. You forgot to tuck me in, he mumbled. Joaquin scooped him up. I'll never forget again. As he carried Dwight to bed, Shanice stood by the doorway, one hand on her chest, not to keep her heart in, but to feel the warmth she hadn't trusted in years. For the first time, she let herself believe in tomorrow. Field day arrived on a Thursday so sunny it felt like the sky had something to prove. The playground buzzed with music, laughter and chaotic energy as children zipped around in team-colored shirts, flinging beanbags, tugging ropes, and launching themselves into sack races with more heart than form. Joaquin stood on the sidelines, arms crossed, wearing a red t-shirt that said Team Dwight in thick marker, lettering across the front. He'd made it himself. Shanice hadn't even asked. Tyrese stood next to him, sipping from a water bottle. You look ridiculous, he said. I feel ridiculous, Joaquin replied. But Dwight's grinning like it's Christmas. Joaquin glanced toward the little boy bouncing in line at the starting cone. He was waving, cheeks flushed, the biggest smile plastered across his face. He is, Joaquin said. For once, I showed up. Tyrese looked at him for a long moment. Keep showing up. Later that evening, Dwight was knocked out on the couch, juice box still in his hand, socks mismatched. His red ribbon for most energetic jumper was clipped to his shirt like a badge of honor. Joaquin stood in the kitchen helping Shanice wash dishes. The silence between them felt warm now, not a void but a comfort. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For being there. For wearing that shirt. I thought the glitter was a nice touch. She smirked. Seriously though, she added, he's never had anyone scream his name from the bleachers like that. I would have climbed the roof if they let me. She didn't respond, just handed him another plate. But she didn't let go right away. Their fingers touched for a second longer than necessary. That weekend, Joaquin brought over an old photo album, not of his business trips or luxury life, but of his childhood. Pictures of a lanky boy with scraped knees and an oversized afro, arms slung around cousins at family barbecues, sitting beside his mother on a worn couch in an apartment not unlike Shanice's. He flipped through the pages with Dwight, telling stories of broken swings and secret hideouts, pointing out his younger self and laughing at his own fashion disasters. Shanice watched from the couch, listening. It was the most vulnerable she'd ever seen him, not in weakness, but in realness. That night, as Dwight lay asleep, Shanice and Joaquin sat on the fire escape, wrapped in an old blanket. The city pulsed beneath them, streetlights flickering, distant music drifting up from a corner store speaker. I used to watch the skyline and imagine you in one of those towers, she said, succeeding, thriving, forgetting me. I never forgot you. I thought maybe I'd moved on, she admitted. Then I'd see a man in a grey suit and my heart would jump, like I was trained to hope. He turned to her. You were never forgettable. She looked at him for a long time, then leaned her head against his shoulder. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The intimacy was in the silence, in the fact that neither of them wanted to be anywhere else. The following Monday, Joaquin got a call from Tamara. His mother's voice was as clipped as ever. So, she said, you found your family again. I did. And the child? His name is Dwight. Is he? He's mine. There was a long pause. I sent him a quilt, she said. I know. He sleeps with it every night. Another silence. Maybe I'll stop by. He didn't respond at first. Then, that would mean a lot. The next Friday, Tamara came by. She wore heels and a fitted coat. Her hair pulled tight, her lipstick sharp. She stood in Shanice's doorway like a guest entering a courtroom. Shanice welcomed her with grace, not warmth, but respect. Dwight peeked out from behind the couch. "You must be the famous grandson," Tamara said, crouching slightly. Dwight blinked. "You made my blanket." She nodded. "Yes, I did. I like it." For a moment, something softened in her features. "Good. I hoped you would." Joaquin watched from the kitchen, stunned by the quiet miracle of the moment. Later, as Tamara and Shanice sat across from each other on the couch, exchanging polite conversation that felt like diplomacy, Joaquin pulled Dwight onto his lap. "You good?" he asked. Dwight nodded. "She's fancy." "She is, but I like her." Joaquin smiled. "Me too." That night, after everyone had gone and Dwight was asleep, Shanice stepped out onto the balcony. Joaquin followed her, 2 mugs of tea in hand. "I never thought she'd come," Shanice said. "Neither did I. She surprised me." "So did you," Joaquin said softly. She looked at him. "You stayed. I told you I would." There was a pause. Then, slowly, carefully, Shanice reached up and touched his face. Not possessively, not romantically, just a gesture of familiarity reclaimed. And in that simple moment, she realized she no longer feared his presence. She welcomed it. Tuesday morning came with a soft mist hanging over the city like a veil. Shanice had already dropped Dwight off at school and returned to a quiet apartment where the hum of the kettle was the loudest sound. She glanced at her phone. A single unread message. "Tyrese, you free today? We need to talk." She sighed, knowing exactly what was coming. Later that afternoon, Tyrese let himself in with his copy of The Key. He didn't knock. He never did. Shanice sat cross-legged on the couch, a throw blanket over her knees, mug in hand. She didn't speak right away. She let him get comfortable, or at least pretend to. He leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "So, you two are getting cozy again." She didn't flinch. "We're rebuilding something." Slowly, Tyrese gave her that look, the one that was half concern, half big brother, and all truth. "You letting him all the way back in?" "I'm letting him be present for his son. That's not what I asked." Shanice looked away. "I don't know yet, Ty. I'm not jumping into anything. I'm watching. I'm listening. And feeling?" She hesitated, trying not to. Tyrese sat down across from her, placing his elbows on his knees. "I'm not here to kill your joy, but I've seen women lose themselves chasing a man who just learned how to apologize." Shanice nodded slowly. "He's not the same." "Maybe not, but you're not the same either. The you from 5 years ago." She'd forgive him just because he showed up with a storybook and a sad face. "I'm not her anymore." Good, because the you now, she knows her worth. And that little boy, he deserves consistency. Not just a few sweet weeks followed by another vanishing act. He's not going anywhere. Tyrese narrowed his eyes. "That a hope or a fact?" "I'm watching him, Ty. Every day. And if he slips?" Shanice's jaw tightened. "Then I won't." Meanwhile, Joaquin was pacing the sidewalk outside a bakery 2 blocks away, carrying a paper bag of chocolate croissants and fresh-pressed juice. He had no idea Tyrese was visiting, but he knew something was stirring. Shanice had been quieter lately, more guarded. The honeymoon of reconnection was cracking, not with anger, but realism. He had no illusions. Earning back trust wasn't a sprint. It was 1,000 slow walks, rain or shine. Later that day, Joaquin arrived at Shanice's apartment, just as Tyrese was leaving. They crossed paths on the sidewalk. Tyrese stopped. "Hey, hey," Joaquin replied cautiously. "You're doing better than I expected." "Thanks. I think—" "I meant what I said to her," Tyrese continued. "She's not a rebound. She's not a prize. She's a woman who patched herself up without your help. I know. You really—" "Yes." Tyrese stepped forward, lowering his voice. Then act like it. Don't expect her to collapse into your arms just because you finally learned how to say sorry. I don't expect anything, Joaquin said. I'm showing up because she and Dwight deserve that, even if I end up alone. Tyrese studied him for a long moment. Then, with a faint nod, he walked away. That evening, Joaquin handed Shanice the croissants. They were still warm. She smiled faintly. Thank you. He sat beside her on the couch while Dwight built a Lego fortress on the floor. Tyrese came by, she said, not looking at him. I know. He cares. He's protective. He should be. She turned toward him. He told me I'm not the same woman I was. And he's right. I see that. I don't forgive as quickly. You shouldn't. I ask more questions. You should ask all of them. She stared at him. Do you love me, Joaquin? The question hit like thunder in a clear sky. He didn't hesitate. I never stopped. Her eyes searched his. You loved me before, but you didn't choose me. Not when it mattered. He nodded. That's true. Then why should I believe it's different now? Because I'm not trying to win you back. She blinked. You're not? No, he said. I'm trying to be the kind of man who deserves you, whether you take me back or not. Later that night, after Dwight was asleep, Joaquin stayed for tea. They didn't talk much. The comfort between them had grown into something that didn't always need words. He glanced at her bookshelf and saw a familiar journal tucked between cookbooks and mail. He reached for it gently. You still write? She hesitated. Not lately. Can I read something? She shook her head. Maybe one day. He nodded, respecting the boundary. But I'll tell you what I'd write tonight, she said. He turned to her. I'd write, today he didn't fix everything, but he didn't break anything either. And maybe that's enough for now. Joaquin exhaled. That was everything. The next morning was slow, the kind of morning where nothing rushed. No alarms, no missed buses. Just the smell of toast in the air, the faint clink of utensils, and the low hum of cartoons in the background. Joaquin sat at the kitchen table, tying Dwight's sneakers with practiced hands. The boy chattered on about a school art contest he wanted to enter. It's about family, Dwight said. We have to draw our family. Everyone gets one page. Joaquin froze for half a second. Shanice noticed. He looked up at her. What should I say when the teacher asks why I wasn't in the picture before? Shanice's mouth parted slightly, then closed again. Dwight answered before she could. I'll say you were on another planet. He grinned. But you came back. Joaquin blinked, his throat tightening. I think that's perfect, he whispered. Later that day, while Dwight was at school, Joaquin returned to the apartment with something unexpected, a slim manila folder. I went to therapy, he said quietly. Shanice looked up from her laptop. Today? 2 weeks ago. I've been going. She raised an eyebrow. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to show up here waving progress around like a banner. I just wanted to start. She walked over, opening the folder slowly. Inside was a worksheet, filled out in Joaquin's unmistakable handwriting, from a counseling session titled Triggers and Emotional Responsibility. I've been unpacking everything, he said. My childhood. Why I shut down. Why I thought walking away was strength. Shanice sat down slowly. And what did you find? That I was never taught how to stay when things got quiet. She read silently for a moment, then nodded. Keep going. Tyrese called that night. Update? He asked. I think he's serious, Shanice said softly. You sure? He's going to therapy. Not to impress me, just because he knows he needs to. Tyrese was quiet for a long beat. You still got that out? My exit plan? She asked. Yeah, she sighed. Always. Then you're okay. Meanwhile, Joaquin lay awake in the guest room. He stared at the ceiling fan, hands behind his head, mind spinning. Earlier that night, Dwight had asked if he could call him Dad in front of friends at school. I don't want to make you sad, Dwight had said, or make Mom mad. Joaquin had pulled him close. You call me whatever feels safe to you. The boy had nodded, serious. Okay, Dad. And with that one word, the guilt and the grace of fatherhood slammed into Joaquin like a wave. The next morning, a knock came at the door. It wasn't expected. Tamara stood outside, holding a tote bag and wearing a pair of reading glasses. I found some books Dwight might like, she said. Shanice blinked. Come in. She sat at the table with Dwight and Joaquin as they flipped through the titles. Space adventures, dinosaur encyclopedias, a few picture books with diverse characters. Tamara smiled faintly. Tired of seeing kids who don't look like him in every book, Joaquin glanced at her. You picked these yourself? She nodded. Didn't want my second chance with him to come wrapped in ribbon. Shanice stared at the two of them, Joaquin and his mother, once emotionally distant, now both learning how to stretch towards something human. That night, Shanice stepped onto the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle. Joaquin joined her, 2 mugs in hand. You're building something here, she said. Not just with him. With yourself. I'm trying. I see that. He leaned against the rail. I don't want to ask for anything. Not right now. Good, she said gently. Because I don't want promises. I want presence. I can give that. Can you give it on days when I'm hard to love? I want to learn how. She looked at him. And this time, she didn't flinch when he reached for her hand. The next Saturday morning was different, not because the sun was brighter, or because Dwight woke up unusually early, although both were true, but because, for the first time in years, Joaquin was part of the rhythm. He was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, wearing an apron that read "This guy cooks" in bold red letters. The sleeves of his t-shirt were rolled up, and he hummed under his breath, completely absorbed in the art of not burning breakfast. Shanice walked in, eyebrows raised. I don't remember teaching you that, she said. You didn't, he said, flipping one with too much confidence. It landed half on the plate, half on the stove. The internet did. YouTube dad mode. He grinned. Got to keep up. She opened the fridge. Did you remember he doesn't like syrup? Of course. But he will try peanut butter today. Shanice blinked, impressed. Look at you, learning preferences. I've been watching. They sat at the table as Dwight munched away happily, peanut butter smudged across one cheek. So, Joaquin began. Big day today. Dwight lit up. You remembered. Robot convention. How could I forget? Shanice sipped her coffee, amused. You realize it's just a middle school gym full of cardboard dioramas, right? To him, Joaquin said, it's Comic-Con. Dwight grinned. It's gonna be so cool. Joaquin leaned in. You and me, buddy, matching robot t-shirts and all. You got one too? Ordered last week. Dwight gave him a double thumbs up. Best day ever. They arrived at the school gymnasium by noon. The place buzzed with chatter, blinking lights, and the whirring of simple robotics controlled by shy kids with oversized glasses and oversized dreams. Joaquin walked beside Dwight with pride, letting the boy lead. He asked questions, high-fived students, and crouched beside each project to hear the stories behind blinking circuits and battery-powered claws. One display featured a robot made to pick up sadness and give you candy instead. This one wins, Joaquin said. Totally, Dwight agreed. In the middle of all the noise, Joaquin bent slightly, whispering, You're the coolest kid here. Dwight smiled. You're a good listener. Later, as they left the building, Dwight held his dad's hand tighter than usual. Hey, he said, do you like being my dad? Joaquin froze for half a second. I love being your dad, he said. You're good at it. Joaquin's eyes stung. Thanks, little man. Can you come to Parent Day next week? You don't even have to ask. Dwight beamed. From a few feet back, Shanice watched it all unfold. Her son's hand in Joaquin's, the conversation so pure, so complete, that for a moment she forgot the ache that used to live in her chest. Maybe this was how healing looked. That evening, while Dwight worked on homework, Joaquin joined Shanice on the back steps with 2 cups of tea. I was scared I'd miss it, he said. Miss what? This version of him. The one that's still innocent enough to love me without a tally sheet. She looked at him. He's more intuitive than you think. He might not know details, but he knows you were gone. I know. You're lucky he doesn't use that against you. I don't take it for granted. She sipped slowly. He loves you already, but if you want to keep that love, you have to keep showing up, even when you're tired, even when it's messy. I'm not going anywhere. Don't tell me, she said. Show him. The next morning, Joaquin was at the apartment early with breakfast, Dwight's favorite fruit bowl and a robot-shaped pancake press. They ate together, laughed, then started a puzzle in the living room. Shanice watched from the hallway, arms folded. The man she once knew, who had slept through holidays and texted instead of talking, was now on the floor, holding up two nearly identical puzzle pieces and asking a 5-year-old for advice. Something had shifted. Not just in behavior, but in posture. This man wasn't performing. He was present. At bedtime, Joaquin read from a book about a robot who traveled across galaxies to bring back a missing piece of home. Halfway through the story, Dwight interrupted. Is that you? Me, the robot. You went far, but now you're back. Joaquin's heart ached. Yeah, I think it is. Dwight leaned his head against Joaquin's chest. I'm glad you're home. Meanwhile, Tyrese called Shanice that night. So, still holding the line? She smiled. I'm letting the line move, just not disappear. He earning it? Every hour. Tyrese exhaled. All right then. Later that evening, Joaquin stepped onto the balcony where Shanice stood watching the stars blink lazily. Didn't know New Jersey had stars, he joked. You have to look past the noise to see them. They stood in silence. Then she turned to him. You're learning Dwight. I'm trying. You're also learning me. I want to. She nodded. Then keep going. He reached for her hand again. And this time, she held on tighter. The week moved like honey, slow but sweet. Each morning, Joaquin picked Dwight up from school. Each evening he helped with homework and stayed through bedtime. Each night, Shanice watched a man do what he should have done long ago, and still marveled at how his presence no longer made her flinch. It was the calm between storms. But peace, Shanice had learned, always comes with questions. Thursday evening, Shanice sat on the floor of her bedroom, old photo albums open like wounds in her lap. Most of them were from better days. Baby Dwight wrapped in hospital blankets, tiny hands gripping her pinky finger, blurry selfies she'd taken alone when exhaustion pressed like fog over her bones. But tucked between the pages were 2 ultrasound pictures, one labeled with a sticky note. The first moment I knew I'd never be alone again. She hadn't shown these to Joaquin. Not yet. Part of her still didn't know if he deserved to hold them. The next morning, Joaquin arrived with a surprise, a small envelope in his jacket pocket. Shanice eyed it warily. What's this? Just open it. Inside was a school permission slip, signed by Joaquin, for an upcoming father-son camping trip hosted by Dwight's after-school club. I checked with his teacher, Joaquin said. He's eligible if both parents agree. Shanice hesitated. You want to take him camping? I want to be the kind of father who shows him the world. Even the parts with bugs. She raised an eyebrow. You're scared of bugs? Deathly, but I'll fight them all for him. She chuckled, despite herself. If he comes back with a tick, you're banned. Fair. She folded the form. I'll pack his sleeping bag. That night, Dwight paced the living room in excitement. Do you think there'll be raccoons? Definitely, Joaquin said. Maybe even robot raccoons. Cool. Shanice watched from the hallway. Her son's joy was louder than her doubts. For now, that was enough. Saturday came fast. At the campsite, Joaquin stood awkwardly among other dads, some experienced and others faking it. Dwight clung to him like Velcro. They pitched their tent, lopsided but sturdy. They told flashlight stories. They roasted marshmallows. At one point, Dwight leaned against him and whispered, You're not like the other dads. Joaquin stiffened. Is that bad? No, they're normal. You're new, like a surprise dad. Joaquin's heart stung. I hope I'm a good surprise. You are. Later that night, as they lay under the stars, Dwight whispered again, "I wish you'd been here when I was little." Joaquin exhaled, "Me too." Meanwhile, Shanice sat alone at home, holding the ultrasound photos in one hand and a phone in the other. She typed out a message. "Shanice, he's at the camp. Seems happy. I might show him these soon." She didn't send it. Not yet. The next day, Joaquin returned with a tired, dirt-streaked, joy-drunk boy who couldn't stop talking about fishing poles and shadow puppets. Shanice laughed at the sight. "You look like you fought a bear," she said. "I think I did," Joaquin said, dropping his muddy backpack. Dwight ran into her arms. "We made s'mores with peanut butter. I'll pretend I'm not jealous." Joaquin pulled out a drawing from his backpack. It showed 3 stick figures under a tent. One was labeled me, one was Mom, and the third, Dad. Shanice's eyes misted. Joaquin offered a small smile. "He drew that without me asking." "I know," she whispered. That night, after Dwight was asleep, Joaquin joined her on the fire escape. Shanice handed him a photo, the ultrasound. He held it like it might dissolve. "I took this alone," she said. "You were in Tokyo. I almost called, but I didn't want to ruin your speech." He looked up, guilt swimming behind his eyes. "I should have been there." "I know." He stared at the image again. His son before breath, before first words, before first steps. "I missed everything," he whispered. "You still have today." He looked at her, and this time she didn't look away. He missed the birth, the first steps, the first words. But now he's here, steady, quiet, trying. Do you believe a man like Joaquin deserves a second chance? Not just as a father, but as a partner? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. And if this chapter moved you even a little, hit that like, share, and subscribe button, because stories like this, they're for all of us who are learning to love better. Tamara stood at her kitchen window, tea untouched, watching the clouds roll in over the rooftops like slow thoughts. For most of her life, she had loved quietly and corrected harshly. That was how her mother raised her. Keep your voice low, your standards high, and never let emotion take the lead. But now, her son was changing, and so was she. She reached for her phone, scrolled through her gallery, paused at a picture of Dwight in his red hoodie, clutching the quilt she had sewn for him. A name stitched in white thread, imperfect but bold, D-W-I-G-H-T. She'd stitched that name late one night without telling Joaquin. It was the first thing she had made by hand in over 20 years. At Shanice's apartment, the doorbell rang. When Shanice opened it, Tamara stood with a small basket in hand, banana bread wrapped in foil, a jar of honey, and a box of children's books. Shanice blinked. "Come in." Tamara stepped inside, nodding at Dwight as he ran past with a toy plane in hand. "Hi, Grandma," he called over his shoulder. Tamara's expression flickered, something between awe and restraint. She set the basket on the table. "You didn't have to bring anything," Shanice said. "I wanted to," Tamara replied. "I want to learn how to do this." "Do what?" "Be part of this family." They sat at the kitchen table while Dwight played in the living room. Tamara glanced at the books in the basket. "I found those at a black-owned bookstore in Montclair. Thought he might like stories with heroes who look like him." Shanice nodded, surprised. "He will—" A quiet pause stretched between them. Then Tamara spoke. "I wasn't kind to you before. I made assumptions." Shanice sipped her tea. "You protected your son." "I smothered him," Tamara corrected. "And I dismissed you." She looked down at her hands. "I was scared. Scared you'd leave him like his father left me." Shanice tilted her head. "He never told me that. He never asked." Another pause. "You raised a good man," Shanice said softly, "even if it took him a while to arrive." Tamara gave a small smile. "He's showing up now." "He is." Joaquin entered later that evening with takeout in hand, and paused when he saw his mother and Shanice laughing quietly over something in a photo album. He blinked. "Should I leave and come back?" Shanice smirked. "You're late." Fashionably, Tamara stood and hugged him, not tight, but intentional. "You're getting better," she said. "I'm trying." She stepped back. "Keep trying." That night, as Dwight lay asleep with his new books beside him, Joaquin and Shanice sat on the floor of the living room. A candle flickered nearby. "She brought banana bread," Shanice said. "She's never baked a thing in her life." "Well, she does now." Joaquin stretched his legs out. "You and her." That felt new. "It was," Shanice said. "She admitted things I didn't expect her to." "She's learning," Joaquin said. Shanice gave him a look. "We all are." The next morning, Joaquin offered to take Dwight to the barber shop. Shanice hesitated. "You sure?" "I want to learn his routine, the little things." She handed him a $10 bill. "He likes to tip the barber himself." Joaquin grinned. "Got it." At the shop, Dwight sat on the booster seat, grinning in the mirror as the clippers buzzed. "This is my dad," he told the barber. The man smiled. "Is that right?" Dwight nodded. "He came back from a robot planet." Everyone laughed. Joaquin just sat silently, watching his son in the mirror, a reflection of himself but purer. After the haircut, Dwight handed the tip over with pride. "Look at you," Joaquin said. "A gentleman." "I learned from Mom." Joaquin chuckled. "I believe that." Back at the apartment, Joaquin helped Dwight build a rocket out of cardboard and glue. It was crooked, messy, absolutely perfect. "Want to help me name it?" Dwight asked. "Sure." "What's the mission?" "To fix broken things." Joaquin blinked. "Then it's got to be called the Repair Ship," he said. "Or the Heart Fixer. Even better." Later that night, Joaquin stepped onto the balcony with Tamara, both holding cups of ginger tea. "She likes you now," he said. Tamara smirked. "She tolerates me. That's enough for now." "I saw you two talking. That wasn't tolerance." "She's strong," Tamara said, "but soft where it counts. She kept this family together without me. She shouldn't have had to." They sipped quietly. "She told me about the ultrasound," Tamara added, "about how she went alone." "I wasn't ready to hear that." "You are now." He nodded. "I want to give her more than I took." "Then keep showing up, even when the doors don't swing wide, even when the answers come slow." "I will." Sunday afternoon brought soft jazz from the stereo and the scent of cinnamon rolls wafting from the kitchen. Shanice had picked up the recipe from an old blog post, the kind with grainy photos and heartfelt commentary about family breakfast traditions. Joaquin leaned against the counter, sleeves rolled up, watching her knead dough. "You bake when you're nervous," he said. "I bake when I need peace." "Same thing, huh?" Shanice nodded. "You ever wonder if this is just a phase, this soft version of you?" Joaquin didn't answer right away. "I think the phase was the hard version," he said. "This feels more like who I was before everything got loud." She looked at him. "And who was that?" He wiped flour off her cheek with a gentle thumb. "Yours." Later that day, Dwight sat cross-legged on the rug, coloring his repair ship with red and silver markers. A cereal box had become a wing, and 2 paper towel rolls now formed thrusters. "Can we fly it when it's done?" he asked Joaquin. "We can pretend. Pretend is almost real, right?" In all the best ways. Joaquin marveled at the way Dwight's imagination had no edges, no limits. That kind of purity wasn't just rare, it was sacred. That evening, Shanice sat on the couch with a worn quilt across her lap, the one Tamara had made. "You noticed?" Joaquin asked. "I sleep with it when I need grounding." He sat beside her. "That's how I feel around you." She laughed softly. "You used to feel restless around me. I was scared you saw too much, and I wasn't ready to be seen. And now, I want you to see everything." They sat in silence for a moment, until Shanice spoke again. "Dwight has a parent-teacher conference next week." Joaquin straightened. "Am I invited? Do you want to be?" "I want to be in the room where he's celebrated." Shanice gave a small nod. "Then you'll be there." On conference night, Dwight's teacher, a kind woman with oversized earrings and a warm smile, pulled out his folder with pride. "He's creative, a storyteller, and very protective of the kids who struggle. Joaquin's chest swelled. Shanice smiled. That sounds like my boy. He wrote an essay last week. About his family. She handed it over. The title read, My Dad Came Back from Another Planet. Joaquin's hands trembled as he read the first line aloud. Sometimes the people you think are gone forever show up when you need them most. His voice cracked. Shanice placed a hand on his knee. After the conference, they sat in the car, neither one speaking for a long time. He's processing, Shanice finally said. I don't deserve words like that. You're showing up. That's more than some kids ever get. Joaquin looked over at her, eyes glassy. I don't want to be a sometimes dad. Then don't be. The next morning, Dwight raced into the kitchen wearing a cape. Today's superhero day. He shouted, Mom, you're Wonder Woman. Dad, you're Iron Man. Joaquin raised a brow. Not Superman? You need tools, Dwight teased. Mom already has superpowers. Shanice winked. He's not wrong. Later that night, Joaquin and Shanice sat on the rooftop of her building, a blanket wrapped around their shoulders. You ever think we could have made it back then? He asked. Not with who you were. He nodded. I wasn't built for stillness. You are now. He turned to her. Do you still love me? She inhaled slowly. I never stopped. I just stopped letting it guide me. What guides you now? Peace. And watching what a man does, not what he says. He took her hand. I want to build something real, again. But this time, without breaking the foundation, she didn't answer. But she didn't pull her hand away either. Rain fell again. Not the sharp kind that slapped windows, but the kind that whispered against the pavement. Steady, reflective, like a quiet warning from the sky. Shanice stood at the window, arms crossed, eyes distant. She'd been quiet since the parent-teacher conference. Not cold, not upset, just inward. Joaquin noticed, but he didn't push. Instead, he made tea, cleaned the kitchen, picked up Dwight from school, fixed a squeaky door hinge, all the small things that used to go unnoticed and that now, somehow, meant everything. That Friday, Shanice's phone buzzed with an invitation, a corporate gala, the kind Joaquin used to drag her to in a former life, back when their smiles were painted on, and her gowns were armor. This one was different. It was hosted by one of Joaquin's longtime clients, and he'd RSVP'd for 2 without even thinking. I'll understand if you say no, he said gently when he brought it up. Shanice turned the invitation over in her hands. Will they stare? Yes. Whisper. Probably. Will you care? He looked her dead in the eye. Not even a little. On the night of the gala, Shanice stepped out of her bedroom in a deep emerald dress that hugged her, like it remembered her from happier days. Joaquin stared. You look like the reason men lose wars. She raised an eyebrow. Is that a compliment or a red flag? Compliment. Big, waving compliment. She smirked. Let's go before I change my mind. The venue shimmered with soft gold lighting, string quartets, and the clink of expensive glassware. It smelled like money and influence, and just beneath it, insecurity. Joaquin walked beside Shanice with confidence, hand at her back, shoulders squared. People noticed. Some approached with pleasantries. Others stared from across the room. One man, a former partner of Joaquin's, leaned in too close and said with a fake laugh, Didn't expect to see the ex-wife back on your arm. Joaquin's eyes didn't flinch. Didn't expect to still be paying for your dry cleaning. The man blinked, chuckled awkwardly, and walked away. Shanice whispered, You're different now. He shrugged. A man becomes what he fears losing. They danced. Not a performance. Not for anyone else. Just a slow sway beneath chandeliers, her head against his shoulder, his hand pressed protectively at her waist. He whispered, I miss you. She whispered back, I'm here. It wasn't a promise, but it was enough. Back home, after Dwight was tucked in and the dress was carefully unzipped and hung, Shanice sat beside Joaquin on the couch, hair wrapped, barefaced, feet in his lap. Tonight felt like a full circle, she said. It did, But circles can trap you if you're not careful. He looked at her, serious now. Then let's make a spiral. Upward. Always. She chuckled. You always were poetic after wine. No wine tonight. She paused. So this is real? All of it. She didn't kiss him, but she leaned her head on his shoulder. And in that moment, it was more intimate than lips. The phone rang late. Shanice almost didn't answer. It was past 10. Dwight had just fallen asleep, and the quiet between her and Joaquin was too comfortable to interrupt. But when she saw the name flash across the screen, her breath caught. Renee, HR Dept. Former employer. She excused herself and stepped into the hallway. Hello? Shanice? It's Renee. Sorry for the hour. I just wanted to give you a heads up before tomorrow. Shanice's heart picked up. What's going on? There's a rumor. A partner from one of our affiliate firms brought up your name during today's investor brunch. Something about you being the CEO's ex-wife, and now maybe involved again. It rubbed some folks the wrong way. Shanice closed her eyes. Renee sighed on the other end. You're up for that director promotion next quarter. I'm trying to shield you, but the board's old school. I just want you to be prepared. Shanice's voice tightened. So, if I rebuild my family, I lose the career I fought for. You shouldn't have to. But this is corporate America. She sat on the edge of the bed after the call, phone face down on the floor. Joaquin entered moments later, towel around his neck, t-shirt damp from a late-night shower. Everything okay? Depends on who's asking, she said, not unkindly. He sat beside her. What happened? She told him. Not with drama, not with blame, just facts. And her voice never shook. When she finished, Joaquin's jaw was clenched. You're being punished for loving me again? No, she said. I'm being punished for being seen with you. He stared at the floor. Let me fix this. You can't fix everything with money or apologies. I know, but I can use my voice. That's what got us into this world. Maybe it can help pull you through it. She said nothing, because the part of her that wanted to believe was scared. The next day, Joaquin called in every favor he was owed. He arranged a quiet meeting with one of the firm's top stakeholders, made it clear if Shanice lost her chance because of whispers, their partnership lost its value. By week's end, word came back, the noise had quieted. The promotion was still on track, but Shanice hadn't thanked him, not yet. That Saturday, Dwight had his first poetry recital at the community center. Shanice had been helping him memorize his 3-line piece all week. Love is a hug when your legs are tired. Love is robots that fight nightmares. Love is when your mom smiles. He stood proudly on stage in his little red sweater and recited it perfectly. Everyone clapped. Joaquin wiped a tear he didn't even feel coming. Shanice smiled, arms crossed. Tyrese, who had come to support, leaned over. That boy's gonna change the world. I hope so, Shanice whispered. No, Tyrese said. I know so. Outside the center, Dwight tugged Joaquin's hand. I wrote a secret poem, he said. Wanna tell me? Dwight leaned close. Dad is a rocket who came back. Not loud anymore, just warm. Joaquin's voice cracked. That's the best poem I've ever heard. That night, Shanice found Joaquin alone on the balcony, watching the stars. I heard about the meeting you had, she said. He nodded. I didn't want to tell you, unless it worked. It did, I know. A beat passed. Then she added, Thank you. He turned to her. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because no woman should have to choose between love and legacy. She nodded slowly. He took a step forward. Do I still scare you? She didn't flinch. No. Do you still love me? She hesitated, then whispered, Yes. Then silence. Then a kiss, quiet, earned, and without promises. But it tasted like home. Spring in Newark was soft that year. Trees bloomed like slow confessions. Children played on stoops again. The wind no longer bit, just brushed, like it too had softened after all that cold. Joaquin stood on Shanice's porch, 2 bags of groceries in hand and an anxious smile on his face. He knocked twice, the same rhythm Dwight had taught him. Shanice opened the door, hair wrapped, glasses on, the scent of lemon oil drifting from the hallway behind her. "You remembered the oat milk this time." He held it up like a trophy. Even got the brand with the golden cap. She stepped aside to let him in. "You're learning." "I've got the best teacher." In the living room, Dwight was building a city out of shoeboxes and popsicle sticks. "Hey, champ," Joaquin called. Dwight looked up and grinned. "You brought the glue gun?" Joaquin patted his jacket. Locked and loaded. After dinner, the 3 of them walked to the park. Dwight insisted on bringing the city buildings with him, nestled carefully in a big cardboard box. Joaquin carried it like it was sacred. Shanice watched them both, heart full in a way she hadn't felt since before the paperwork, the heartbreak, the late nights of feeding alone while listening for a door that never opened. At the park, Dwight found a bench and laid out his mini-city on the table. As he arranged his library beside his community garden, he said, "I want this to be real one day, for real people." Joaquin crouched beside him. "Then it will be. You think I can make that happen?" "I know you can," Joaquin said. "And when you do, I'll be the first to invest." Shanice smiled at them from behind a book. That word, invest, used to mean contracts and portfolios. Now, it meant presents. Later that week, Shanice received an invitation, not to a gala, not to a meeting, to speak at a women's leadership panel at a local college. Topic, rebuilding while standing tall. She almost declined. But Joaquin stopped her at the door. "You lived this story," he said. "You didn't just survive, you transformed. Someone out there needs to see what that looks like." She paused. "What if I fall apart in the middle?" "Then you'll show them what it looks like to get back up." She exhaled. "Okay." The auditorium buzzed gently that evening. Shanice stepped onto the stage in a cream pantsuit, no notes in hand, just her story in her chest. She told them about being married young, about falling in love with a man who loved ambition more than intimacy, about thinking love could survive off scraps. She told them about signing divorce papers while pregnant and keeping it to herself, about holding her baby for the first time with no hand to hold beside her, about rebuilding, quietly, fiercely. She didn't mention Joaquin by name, but she said this: sometimes love leaves, and sometimes it grows up and comes back better. But the question is never, will they return? It's, will I still recognize myself when they do? The crowd stood. Tears. Applause. Even Joaquin, who watched from the shadows at the back of the room, had to wipe his eyes. After the speech, they sat on the hood of his car under the college's flickering parking lot light. "I didn't say your name. I know. I needed that part to stay mine." "You earned that." She looked at him. "You still planning to stick around?" "I'm already rooted. And if we stumble again, we rebuild. Together this time." 2 weeks later, something simple changed everything. They went to register Dwight for summer camp. The form had a line, father's full name. Joaquin paused with the pen. "Can I put it?" he asked. Shanice nodded. "Only if you mean it." He wrote slowly, deliberately, "Joaquin Isaiah Rivera." The next day, Shanice gave him a key. "To the apartment?" he asked. "To the lock you closed," she replied. That night, Dwight crawled into bed between them with a bad dream. "I was floating in space and nobody could hear me," he mumbled. Shanice rubbed his back. Joaquin pulled the covers higher. "You're safe now, champ. You're home." August arrived quietly. It didn't scream through heat waves or parade through the skies. It just settled, warm, confident, and full of closure. Dwight's first-grade graduation was a modest affair. Folding chairs, juice boxes, children in tiny caps. Joaquin adjusted his tie twice before they left the apartment, though no one had asked him to dress up. "You nervous?" Shanice teased. "I just want him to be proud." "He already is," she said, adjusting his collar. In the multi-purpose room of Dwight's elementary school, parents took photos on phones, teachers passed out construction paper diplomas, and someone's baby cried during "You Are My Sunshine." When Dwight walked up for his certificate, he paused at the mic. "Can I say something?" The teacher blinked. Sure? Dwight cleared his throat. "My name is Dwight. I'm 6. My favorite color is red. I like robots and building cities, but mostly," he looked at Joaquin, "I'm proud of my mom, and I'm glad my dad came back." The room clapped, but it was the silence in Joaquin's throat that thundered loudest. He had no words, only tears. After the ceremony, Tamara surprised them in the hallway, makeup done, grey dress sharp, holding a small velvet box. Shanice blinked. "You came only for my grandson," she said. "Don't get excited." She handed Joaquin the box. "It was your grandfather's. If you're going to do this right, do it all the way." Inside was a simple gold ring, engraved, "Lead with love." That evening, the 3 of them returned home, balloons in hand, pizza in the back seat, and Dwight fast asleep by the time they reached the apartment. Shanice laid him down gently. When she turned, Joaquin was already on one knee in the living room. She froze. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't rehearsed. He was just ready. "I failed you once," he said. "Not just as a partner, but as a witness to your magic. You didn't need saving. You needed presence. And I wasn't man enough back then to understand what a rare love looks like when it stands right in front of you." Her breath hitched. "I'm not asking to erase what happened. I'm asking to honor it, all of it, because the mess made us better. And this time, I want to marry you with no prenups, no pride, no conditions, just presence, every day. As long as you'll have me." He opened the box. The gold ring sparkled under the living room light. Shanice said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, "You're really doing this, huh?" "I'm really doing this." She smiled, eyes full. "No tux, no grand wedding. Just you, me, and Dwight. Perfect," he whispered. She slipped the ring on herself. Then, yes, weeks later, they moved into a new home just 5 blocks from Dwight's school. Not a mansion, not a penthouse, just a warm, sunlit townhouse with a garden out back and a small plaque by the mailbox that read, "The Rivera family." One Saturday morning, Dwight stood outside his new bedroom door with a piece of paper and a crayon. He drew a stick-figure family, 1 tall man, 1 tall woman, 1 small boy with a red cape. Then he wrote, in big crooked letters, "My home equal to love." He taped it on his door proudly. "Now it's official," he said. Shanice and Joaquin watched from the hallway. She leaned her head on Joaquin's shoulder. "You think we're ready?" she asked. "I think we're right," he said. Later that night, after Dwight was asleep and the rain began again, soft and slow, they lay in bed, fingers interlaced. "I used to think silence meant something was wrong," she whispered. "And now? Now it feels like peace." He kissed her temple, then her cheek, then her shoulder. "Then let's never stop listening to it. Years from now, when Dwight is older, he won't remember the exact words his parents said to each other on their 2nd wedding night. He won't remember the way the rain fell outside that day or the scent of the vanilla candle flickering on the windowsill. But he will remember love. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the steady kind, the kind that shows up every day with 2 matching socks and makes his sandwich the way he likes. No crust, triangle cut, always with a smile. Joaquin never returned to his old company. Instead, he invested in a foundation Shanice started, a women-led initiative that offered mentorship and microloans for single mothers rebuilding their lives. He sat quietly in the back of every workshop. He never asked for credit. He just took notes, offered rides, made sure everyone had hot coffee, and clapped the loudest when a woman stood up and said, "I started my own business." Shanice began writing. At first, just journal entries, then essays, then keynote addresses. Eventually, a publisher approached her after reading an op-ed she posted called, "The Divorce Wasn't My Ending. It Was My Invitation to Begin." It went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. She spoke of leaving quietly, raising Dwight quietly, healing quietly, and how love returned, not with fireworks, but with folded laundry and open ears. Tamara changed too. It took time, but one evening, she asked if she could take Dwight to a museum, just the two of them. When they returned, Dwight was carrying a tiny globe and chattering about Africa and rockets. Tamara said nothing at first. Then, to Joaquin, quietly, "You did good." He didn't reply. He just held her hand. For the first time in years. One night, Dwight had a nightmare. He dreamt the house was empty again, that the walls were quiet in a sad way, that nobody came when he called. He woke up crying. Shanice rushed in first, Joaquin behind her. They wrapped him in blankets and promises. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm here," Joaquin said. "You're safe," she added. "We're not going anywhere," he echoed. And slowly, Dwight drifted back to sleep. Years later, at his high school graduation, Dwight took the stage to give the valedictorian speech. His classmates expected a speech about success and pressure and GPA scores. But Dwight started with a story. "There was a time I thought love had to shout to be real, that if it didn't come with flowers or big gestures, it wasn't love. Then I saw my dad show up every day with quiet apologies and louder consistency. And I saw my mom forgive not because she was weak, but because she had healed strong. I stand here today because they reminded me. Love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, stays, and grows roots." The auditorium went still, then exploded into applause. Have you ever loved someone who didn't know how to love you back until it was too late? Or maybe you were the one who didn't realize the value of what you had until it was gone? We want to hear your story. Drop a comment below, whether it's a lesson, a testimony, or a silent prayer that turned into growth. And if this story reminded you of the strength in second chances, hit like, share it, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more narratives that don't just entertain, they heal. Because sometimes, power doesn't scream. It whispers, loves, and builds legacies.